Greetings, friends. My name is Pavel Steinman, and now we'll dive in the top news of this day. Today is a day of mourning in the Kherson region. During the Sunday shelling, Russian troops killed 7 people and injured 9 others. As a result of Russian artillery shelling of Shirokobauka, a family with a baby was killed, and another child was hospitalized in serious condition. On Friday, an 8-year-old boy was killed in Ivano-Frankivsk region. It is less than 200 kilometers from the borders of Poland and Slovakia, Hungary and Romania. So Ukrainian children are also victims of the war launched by Putin. According to juvenile prosecutors, at least 500 children have already died. More than 1,000 have been injured. And now, how can we not mention the text "children" on the square in front of the drama theater in Mariupol? Did not stop them. And what did they do? Yes, they dropped an aero bomb. So Russians are aware of the consequences of their actions when they attack civilian targets. At the same time, enemy propaganda cynically speculates on the topic of dead Ukrainian children in Donbass, where the Russians brought the war in 2014 first. In the occupied territories, Russians threats Ukrainian children as a trophy, through which it seeks to solve its demographic and mobilization issues.
Evacuation and rehabilitation are words that the occupiers use to cover up their crimes when they kidnap Ukrainian children. This is followed by forced passporting, changing of the child's personal data, adoption by Russian families. Unfortunately, time is not in this case. For children living in a hostile environment in a constant patriotic upbringing by the occupiers. Dmitro Lubinets, Ukrainian Parliament Commissioner for Human Rights, on Telegram.
The mass abduction of Ukrainian children by the occupiers falls under the crime of genocide in accordance with international law. In the area of Turkish territorial waters, the patrol ship Vasily Vikov of the Russian Black Sea Fleet resorted to provocation using force against dry cargo vessel Sukru Okan under the flag of Palau and with a Turkish crew which was heading to the port of Izmail in Ukraine. The provocation of the Russians against the Sukru Okan vessel posed a physical danger to its crew and was an encroachment on property. The provocations of the Russian fleet in the immediate vicinity of the territorial waters of Turkey are a hostile act against a NATO country. The behavior of the Russian fleet towards civilian vessels can be regarded as piracy. It requires a solution involving the fleet of the international coalition.
The Russian Navy grossly violated the UN Charter, the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and other norms of international law. These actions exemplified Russians' deliberate policy of endangering the freedom of navigation and safety of commercial shipping in the Black Sea. We express our support and solidarity with Turkey, our strategic partner, and we call on the international community to take decisive action to prevent Russian Federation's actions that impede the peaceful passage of vessels through the Black Sea. Statement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine on the provocative actions of the Russian Federation in the Black Sea.
With its withdrawal from the grain deal, Russia no longer has the right to inspect ships bound for Ukrainian ports. At the same time, Ukraine continues working with UN and Turkey to restore the previous format of grain agreements because it is critical for the food security of the world. Options for alternative ways and formats of functioning of the grain corridor are being developed, considering the economic interests of the partner countries. The Ukrainian Navy has announced new temporary routes for civilian vessels to and from the Black Sea ports of Ukraine. Previously, these routes have already been suggested by Ukraine in an appeal to the International Maritime Organization, and the organization recognized the right of Ukraine to free merchant shipping, which is guaranteed by the international law of the sea, and called on Russia to comply with international conventions to stop threats to merchant shipping in the Black Sea. Consumers of Ukrainian food, in particular the countries of the Middle East and Africa, should put organized pressure on Moscow to end its blockade of Ukrainian ports. Belarus, with the support of Russia, encouraged illegal border crossings in order to destabilize Poland. It was stated by Polish Defense Minister Mariusz Błaszczak. And you know, Russia seeks to scale up its aggression against Ukraine to confront the West. The Kremlin seeks war, not peace.
If Putin decides that he needs to go all in, then he can use this terrorist group to provoke NATO and see how they react and whether they will apply Article 5 of the treaty. Alexei Danilov, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, in an interview with Liga.net.
Self-proclaimed President Lukashenko has turned Belarus into a springboard for Russian armed groups that threaten the West. Dictatorial regimes in Moscow and Minsk launched a hybrid war against the West. Their weapons are special forces, militants, mercenaries, civilian refugees, etc. The experience of Ukraine in 2014 shows that aggression involves actions under a false flag and irregular forces. Therefore, NATO should respond to the Kremlin's provocations as to the aggression. NATO countries need to completely isolate and close their borders with Belarus and Russia. The Kremlin understands only the language of force. Therefore, the strengthening of Russian provocations should be met with the provision of Ukraine with long-range weapons and modern fighters. Russia seeks to further involve Belarus in the war against Ukraine. Also, Moscow wants to provoke a direct conflict between Minsk and Kyiv. Moscow also plans to use Belarus for escalation conflict with the West, primarily Poland and Lithuania. Mercenaries of the PMC Wagner are Russian Trojan horse in that country. They came to the country to start a war, not to keep the peace. Ukraine does not need another threat of war in the north, but defense forces are ready to repulse any attempts of a new invasion in that direction. Dictatorial regimes in Moscow and Minsk reckon with the fact that the Belarusian people do not want war, so they are trying to change public mood in Belarus itself. That concludes our today's video for now. Thank you for watching and stay updated. Subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support is that really matters. Goodbye.